What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the video. Well, tops are piling up, events are stacking up, and results are down below in the spreadsheet. But just because it has the most tops, does that mean it's the best deck? Not necessarily. And today I want to bring to you my top 10 decks of the format. I think the format's finally shaping up. I think we're seeing things taking shape in where I expect them to kind of end up as the format goes forward. And maybe it's a hot take, but we'll see, right? We'll see. So let's go ahead and talk about it quick. So number 10, my 10th best deck of the format, and that is a former tier 1 deck. It's going to be red-blue. So consistency is probably the biggest problem for this deck. You have King Candy, you have Robin Hood for some draw engines, you have Develop, Azurite Sea, Vision for other consistency cards. You have great answers into evasives with like Half Shark and Goofy, in addition with Moana, and just good ramping tools from Tipo, Kita, Donald Duck if you really want to play Pleakley. Like, really, the entire ramp toolbox is at your disposal. So I think that this deck is in a niche spot where it's a solid rogue deck, and I can't put it any higher because, well, quite frankly, I just can't. If you're trying to truly compete at the most elite level, you probably have to play one of the top 5 decks. That does not mean that decks 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cannot see success, cannot get you there. You absolutely could, especially if you hit the right matchups. If you're expecting a lot of blue-green and you tutor your build to be able to beat that deck more consistently, or you're expecting a lot of Blurple, you're expecting a lot of purple steel, and absolutely, you can see success with other decks. But if you're going to Bologna, if you're going to Milwaukee, I would put a pretty decent amount of money that my top 5 decks win both events. Both events will be taken out by one of those 5, if not the same deck. So that being said, I'm going to go on into number 9, and we're going to stick with Ruby. It's going to be Ruby-Amethyst this time. I've seen heavy evasive builds, I've seen moving damage builds, and I think either which way, it's kind of going to be in that same boat where they're in the rogue category. I don't trust them to really take down a big event. You have a competitive local, stuff like that, absolutely. You really like the deck. You don't want to buy into new cards. I get it, perfectly fine. But as far as where the format's at, I can't put it any higher than number 9. I think it's a little more consistent than red-blue because of the consistency of the Amethyst package, namely Genie, Yzma, weakness, libraries, so much consistency there. The deck does have some niche interactions where like Prince John gets damage as your opponent plays characters, and your other characters can move damage. So between like Bells and your earlier cost Duel Link cards, your weaknesses, like you have a lot of ways to move damage around, and that fits in with like Mulan as well. And Queen of Hearts actually benefits from being damaged. So there's a lot of nice little synergy that the deck has going on. I just think its overall power level is too low when in comparison to a lot of these other strategies. And that's kind of where my thoughts are on that. Number 8. This is my list that I have not updated since the last video, and I think that there's probably better ways to do it, but it's essentially the Amber-Emerald Circle of Life deck. There's crazy draw engines from Stitch to Tramp to Clarabelle, so card draw usually isn't an issue for this deck, and it has a pretty big top end too. Like we see 5 willpower, 8 willpower, 8 willpower, 6 willpower, 6 willpower. And when you look at the top end of the deck too, I mean, even going into your 3 drops, Aurora Quest for 2, Lady Quest for 2, Stitch 3, Tramp 2, Stitch, Tramp, and Clarabelle all questing for 2. Scrump was a card that I've been seeing getting played as well, pairing up with the Under the Sea pretty nicely. I think that this deck is one of the surprise decks. So I know I said the top 5, but honestly, I think this deck, if you put the time into it, is good enough. But you really got to learn your matchups and build and be ready for it, because it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a gauntlet, and you're going to have to go through it. But again, that doesn't mean you can't do it. We're already into number 7. Number 7, I'm going to go Amethyst-Emerald. And if you want more in-depth breakdowns on any of these, let me know. If I did in-depth on 10 decks, that would end up being like a 3-hour long video. So I mean, check the channel. A few of these I have gone in depth on, and if there's other ones you would like to see my thoughts, breaking it on down, all that good stuff, just let me know down in the comments. So here we got a more aggressive style deck. You have a lot of evasives. You have things like Lewis and like Yelena, Wrong Lever, Emerald Chromacon to control the flow of the matchup. And problem being is I don't think this deck is very good into blue-green, and blue-green's pretty good right now. So with that being said, you might be able to combat into like try to go under Blurple while dictating that mid game or things like that. I can't put this deck any higher. It's going to be like a little parrot repeating myself repeatedly right now. Oh my gosh. But I think that the deck is very solid. You have consistency from like Pull the Lever, which can also discard your opponent. You have Genie, Dumbo. Being all these evasive cards means if your opponent can't answer the evasives, you might be able to just run away with it. Again, versus like blue-green versus Blurple, you can try to go under them. Problem is blue-green has turn 3 under the sea as a potential option, and well, they can come back from like 15-0 really easily, and Under the Sea blows out a huge portion of this deck, and that's just going to be very difficult for you. Number 6 and number 8, same color combination, slightly different builds. This time still Under the Sea in there, and like I had mentioned, Scrump being played as well. This is a color combination that I have not been super familiar with, so that's why the other list, I already said that in the last videos, template, it's a start point. It's not a tried true tested version like that. So take that list as you will. This list obviously did really well at the 180 person 6K in Orange County. Shout out to Michael, good job. And you have a lot of 1-drops, 2-drops. You're very aggressive, and this deck has kind of been dubbed doggo. And so far in the format, it's solidified itself as a top tier deck. It's actually number 6 as far as tops go, and that's not why I put it at number 6. I just realized thinking about it, because I was like, okay, it's in tier 2, how many are ahead of it? And I'm like, oh, it's actually positioned right where I have it as well. So again, the number of tops isn't necessarily going to align with these decks if you click on the spreadsheet, and a big reason for that is representation. A big reason for that is conversion rates. It's how decks are going to be moving forward. Were they really good right now because other decks are being prepped for? Example of that being, we just had the Denver PPG, and was it 13% of the field was Amber Steel. 31% of top cut was Amber Steel. That's a very, very strong conversion rate, and actually it was the best conversion rate out of any ink color. Blurple had 29% of the field and converted 50%, which was second, pretty nearly behind. And then you had things like blue-green that was 15 to 13, so kind of right there with like almost a borderline even conversion rate. Purple Steel not converting very well, at least at the PPG. Across the weekend, though, Purple Steel did fantastic at other bigger events and just smaller events too. But so conversion rates, total players, things like that, like matchups, where the format's in flux to, because like in the beginning we saw Blurple and Amethyst Steel dominating, and then we started to see, okay, what deck can answer these? Blue-green. And then what answers that? Amber Steel. And now we're seeing that kind of taking shape, where you have like Purple Steel, Blurple, Blue-green, Amber Steel, creating this little mass of the tier 1 decks and the rotating format of where are we at in the format? Which deck has the target on its back? And honestly, right now, I think that deck is Amber Steel. And I say Amber Steel is the deck that has the target on its back because it took down another major event. These major events aren't being won by Blurple. They're being won by Purple Steel, Amber Steel. I think Blue-green, I'm pretty sure, won one of them. And a big reason for that, despite having great representation, great conversion rates for Blurple, is it has that target on its back, and that's a huge thing when going to these events and choosing decks. If you're comfortable with a handful of different decks, is if you can predict where the format's at and be ahead of it, instant advantage. If you're wrong, disadvantage. That's the difference between casual players, semi-competitive players, pro players. the pro players tend to be right more often. And obviously, being able to travel to events, all that good stuff is helpful too. So, anyway, number 5. We're into the top half. I believe that was 5. Yes, number 5. We're up to number 5, halfway point, and this one is going to be blue steel. So, allies. I saw someone mention about Fire the Cannons. Is Fire the Cannons going to be more popular because of blue-green, because of the one-drop Clarabelle? And I don't quite know about that, because the one-drop Clarabelle, I think most people, I guess, play it at 4 still, but a lot more people are starting to play it at 2 to 3. And you have the 3-drop Clarabelle that draws you a card, which has 3 willpower. So, kind of in this scenario, but at the same time, too, Fire the Cannons hits Royal Guard, it hits Rafiki, it hits those one drop challengers. So maybe Fire the Cannons does see that extra play. But blue steel is honestly, it's a very, very fun deck to play. You have consistency from Robin Hood, Beyond the Horizon, Vision, Sail. You can play Develop. We see Doc also in there as a 4 of. And then you have late game threats like Tinkerbell, Hades, Vincenzo is crazy card. In the list you see on here, you have Aurora and Jasmine on 5, which are fantastic additions that I really like to see in the deck. I feel like this deck is kind of like that net neutral deck of the format, where it might not necessarily be great or bad, and it's how's your hand, how's their hand. Every matchup, every time you sit down to the table, you're not out of it, but you're not necessarily in it. It's going to come down to those like your hands, how it goes, and sometimes you're just going to lose because of that. And for a while there, that was like Ruby-Amethyst of the format, where it's super consistent, super toolboxy, and it's just net neutral. It's not great versus anything. It's not bad versus anything. It's there, and you're going to sit down and you're going to compete with every single deck that sits down in front of you. And I kind of feel like that's where blue steel is at right now in the format. So that's why I have it at number 5. Number 4, I think I'm going out of order as far as total tops. I don't have the spreadsheet up in front of me now. Amber Steel. Like I said, I think Amber Steel is going to get the big target on its back now. I think it needs to. The list you see on the screen isn't necessarily the list everyone else is playing. This was one we broke down a whole bunch of tops, common cards, tech cards, most common ratios, deck core, all this stuff. And if you want to go check that video out, feel free to. But I do that with meta decks and take like 10 to 20 tops and which cards are played at which ratios, break it all down, show the most common cards, the tech cards, the core cards, and then we build a list at the end of it. So that's where this list had come from. I think this deck is, out of any deck in the game, if every single deck on the play opens their dream hand, I think this deck has the highest win percentage. And I mean, if we're going to use that example, most of the tier 1 decks are going to have a very high win percentage. But I would borderline say if you open the perfect hand in this deck, your win percentage is probably like 95%. It's insane. The downside is you don't open that perfect hand all the time, or even most of the time. You open very good hands, very competitive hands. The deck is kind of malleable in the way it can shift and go different routes. Like Tiana is a potential turn 2 with Aurora, otherwise you play it on 3. You can come back with Bodyguard, Pluto. You can come back with Lady, play 2-drop Bodyguard. Like there's a handful of different things here. John Silver, P, ratios of different cards jumping around. But I got Amber Steel as my 4th best deck of the format. And I think once people respect aggro a little bit more, because the format slowed down a lot from what people panicked of in the beginning, I think aggro is going to get checked. It's going to be a tier 1 deck throughout the format. It's going to be there. You got to be ready for it. But I think that it's going to get a little bit of a check and come back down to reality, to where it's still a fantastic deck. Tier 1 deck can win an event, absolutely. But it's going to get a little more respect on its name. And when you do that, it opens up the door for some other decks. With the influx of Amber Steel, I think that it opens the door for Purple Steel, and Purple Steel is going to be my number 3 deck. Like I said, at these major tournaments, it feels like this deck's kind of falling out. Overall, though, I don't know. The deck is still insanely strong, insanely consistent, super toolboxy, A week and a half ago, this was pretty close to what decks were looking like, and honestly, a week and a half later, they've shifted quite a bit because that toolbox is just so vast and crazy, where this deck can be like a full-blown mid-game deck, and it can also be like a very aggressive deck, and wherever the format's at, purple steel caters into it. So you have like Blurple, blue green, amber steel creating this little like loop, purple steel right in the middle of it where it's I'm going to toolbox into whatever the format needs, and then you have like blue steel over here as the net neutral deck. And to me, those are the 5 decks that by far give you the best chance to take down any style of event. I will say that I think the top 4 are clearly the top 4. Blue steel's pretty handily below them, but I think blue steel's also pretty handily above 6 through 10. And then I guess I would even say 6, 7, 8 are pretty head and shoulders above 9 and 10 too. Like, I hate saying it, but there's only 8 decks that I would even consider for a DLC. Right now, it'd have to be one of the top 8. And honestly, it would be the Circle Life deck. I think if you put the time in, I think that deck is probably one of the most rewarding decks of the format. I think it's fantastic. It'd be that, Allies. I'm not huge on Amber Steel. Just I hate, like, it's hard to win on the draw. Not that you can't win on the draw, as proven time and time again. It's just harder than some other decks. So if I'm truly planning, which I am, going to DLC Milwaukee, it's going to be Circle Life. It's going to be Allies. It's going to be Purple Steel, Blurple, or Blue Green. It's going to be one of those 5 decks that I end up taking. And just for my playstyle, how I like to play, and that's kind of why I chose that. But like I said, those top 5, absolutely. 6 through 8, potentially. I wouldn't be surprised. But overall, we got 2 more decks to go to. And is there a big surprise as the best deck? No, I'm sorry. There's not. Blurple, you know it. Blurple's going to be number 1. So we got to go to number 2 first. And it's going to be blue-green. I think blue-green is incredibly strong into Blurple. I think it's Blurple's worst matchup. And if I don't play Blurple for the DLC, this is probably the most likely deck that I will play, just because the playstyle is so similar. It's just the top end's different. The mid to late game is just kind of different. And I guess even the early game, obviously, because you have green cards, shift Clarabelles that you go for. But overall, playstyle is still kind of the same. Blurple's shifted more into like an evasive war lately, whereas this is like just crazy top end, big, strong character war. But how many times are we going to say I think that, like I said, you have a great Blurple matchup. You have Toolbox into aggro, like, fantastic. Like, if you hit Clarabelle on 1, Tipo on 2, again, very specific. This isn't consistent. Clarabelle on 1, Tipo on 2, shift Baymax over Clarabelle on 3, Sing under the sea. You can out, like, even on the draw, you can out something like a Daisy, or let's say Aurora into Tiana, into Lady plus Bodyguard, something crazy. Like, their dream starts you could potentially out. Like, this is that 5% that they lose those scenarios that if this deck opens its dream hand. But it's super consistent, super toolboxy. At times I wonder if Bend to My Will at 2 wouldn't be better, but at the same time you control the board so well. Been playing around with a build lately, and I was losing to Blurple 15-0, and I just came back and won because the top end in this deck is so good. Once you start to get that board presence control between like Basil and John Silver, they put in just so much work to stop your opponent, especially John Silver. If you can get 1 or 2 John Silvers down in your opponent's top decking, it's over, because every time you quest, you force them to challenge. They just can't quest to win the game. Things like Hades, Into the Unknown is really the only outs for it. There's not a whole lot. Your Welcome would be another out. Another John Silver to make your John Silver not be able to quest would be an out, I guess. But those cards are just incredibly strong and put in so much work. And we already said it. I'm not going to waste too much time on it. Blurple. Yeah, Blurple, I think at the end of the day, I was debating, like, do I leave Blurple at the top? And I think I have to, because it might not have won Denver, but it went in 29%, so almost a third of the field was Blurple, but yet half of top cut was Blurple, so it converted higher. If it only had, say, 6 top 16s, 5 top 16s, then I'd say maybe it's not there. Like if the conversion rate was a little more net neutral, but I don't know. Blurple's just so consistent, so toolboxy, so good early game, late game, mid game. Like Blurple's biggest weakness is itself, and what I mean by that is mirror matches are very difficult at times, and missing ramp is very difficult at times. So what do people do to combat those type of things? And blue-green mirror matches are, you want to just bang your head off the wall, but that's competitive card games at times. So those are my top 10 decks of the format right now. In 2 weeks, maybe that changes a little bit, but for right now, I think those are the 10 best decks. Let me know what you guys think. And don't forget, we're getting really close to our 6,000 subscriber giveaway, which means one of you will get a box of Fabled. Take care.